Thank you for joining me today. I'm joined by Sean McCluskey, Vice President of Operations and Technology at St. Joseph Media. Sean, thanks for coming to talk with us. Appreciate you putting the time aside.
Yeah, my pleasure, Lucas.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your role at St. Joseph's?
It's kind of a newish role. We just kind of recently brought two media companies together. I guess still kind of in the process in doing that. So St. Joseph Media has been around for a number of years with a number of publications that would be familiar to most Canadians. It's around mid-2019, purchased a number of publications from another publisher in Canada. Some of the titles among the most storied brands in Canada, so Maclean's Magazine, Chatelaine, to name a few. And over the last year and a half, really have been spending a lot of time kind of bringing these two groups together. As you can imagine, two very different operations, even though we're in the same industry. And that's really been my role, heading up operations and technology is, what's our tech roadmap? What's our product roadmap? Processes between the two, trying to pick the best of both, or frankly, looking for new tools and platforms to kind of help us consolidate these companies and operate as an efficient media and publishing company.
That's very cool. And so given that role that SJC plays in the industry, especially in Canada, maybe you could give us a little insight into some of these trends that you're seeing around publishing.
Sure. I mean, I think one of the trends is obviously that it's a tough business. It's always been a tough business, but I think what you're seeing now is really the mass market publishers like St. Joseph Media are really looking to double down on their presence in the country. Present themselves as a leader. They are now the #1 magazine publisher in the country. The acquisition that they made last year or in 2019 was really just part of that. And I think you're going to see that more and more. I wouldn't be surprised if St. Joseph is involved in more acquisitions as well. But you are seeing divestitures with other publishers. So a lot of the activity really is around who are the brands and the businesses that are going to survive best and thrive in this ever-changing world that we're in. I mean, we still are very bullish on print. We know that print has changed. We know that in some cases it's more niche, more local, more regional. But we still believe in the mass appeal of print as well. And that's taking obviously nothing away from digital. We know that is beyond emerged. We're doubling down in that space as well. And as well as looking at other forms of revenue as well, events, membership, things like that. I don't think the media companies and the publishing companies of the future are going to be able to survive on, one or two or even three streams of revenue. So that's the trends that we're not just watching, but we're actively participating in. And St. Joseph is definitely a company to watch for 2021 and beyond about how we're going to emerge from this last year. And obviously, still in the middle of the global pandemic, but just the fact that we're still around and thriving, I think, says a lot about SJC's approach to the challenges that the industry is going through.
Nice. And as your role of a technology leader within the organization, how do you see IT and the investments that you need to continue to make there? As you said, the industry is constantly changing and evolving. So what is your vision for IT and how do you need to approach those problems?
Yeah, I'd say that, if there's two key words, it's scalability and flexibility. If you don't have those two things as a publisher or a media company that you want to expand, maybe you're looking for more acquisitions, maybe you're looking at parts of your company that you have to spin down or divest. If you've got too much of your capital, and I mean that in human capital and actual capital, tied up in massive technology installs and things like that, massive overhead, you're just not going to be as nimble as you have to be. Right. Especially, you see these new entrants coming into the markets, more than a few of them are sitting on a sizable amount of capital that they didn't earn themselves. And those are the types of entities that we're competing against. So I think, looking more at the cloud, in some cases exclusively at the cloud, I think gives us that flexibility and that scalability that we're looking at. And in fact, our experience with WoodWing in the last, year, 18 months has really been an exercise in looking at how we change our technology roadmap from a flexibility and scalability perspective.
Right. And so when you were looking at that technology landscape about 18 months ago and you were deciding to make a change, what was that driving factor that led you to start looking at the solution you had in place and say you need to move in a different direction?
Yeah, I guess two or three things. I mean, it was cost. We had a fairly significant cost base in our previous systems. Interoperability, which there was none. We had sort of these silo systems in place. And we knew that we had to look at something as well that was scalable. We were finding that we had fixed cost in our business from a technology perspective, particularly around content management and content operations. And we didn't have anything that would easily scale up or efficiently scale up. And I mean that efficiency both from a cost perspective and just, time and hands in the organization as well. And again, that's sort of what ultimately led us to WoodWing.
And that's great. And the timing around your move near the end of 2019, I think that had to have a big impact as we made it into the beginning of 2020. And it may be trite to discuss it now, but the shifts that needed to be made due to the pandemic, how did that work out for you when you were set up and just newly running in WoodWing at the beginning of 2020?
Yeah, I mean, exceptionally well. I think we were, I give ourselves a little bit of credit for having some foresight, but I think we are also incredibly fortunate of the timing. We basically just finished our final rollout to our last couple of brands around the end of February 2020. I don't have to tell you what happened 2 weeks later. Essentially on March 16th, when everybody took their laptops and went home, for the part of our business that was operating in WoodWing Studio already and in the asset management component, we didn't really see a blip in our operations. The difference was people weren't in the office. Some people were already working from home anyway as a regular course of business. It really was, disaster recovery 101 for us from a content management perspective and content operations and workflow. Had we not been on WoodWing, had we been on our previous platform, we would have had a lot of difficulty. There's things that simply would not have worked. We had too much disparity between our asset management system and our workflow and production system. We would have had to employ VPN, remote desktop, and you can just imagine in the middle of those early days of dealing with the pandemic and the workflow and business challenges that came with it. That would not have been a lot of fun. We experienced none of that. We had the opportunity to focus on emotionally what our staff was going through. From a general business management standpoint, those were the focuses of our senior leadership team at the time. We really weren't focused on the production and the operations because everything was working perfectly fine. It just cut over to cloud-based, and away we went.
And that's excellent. And so almost a year in now, how do you feel the culture and the workflow around what you've been doing within WoodWing? How do you feel that's been working?
Again, like exceptionally well, having had now the better part of a year with that first publishing group. I talked about the merger of those two companies coming together. We are just kind of been kicking off over the last couple of months, bringing that second group over into WoodWing. And I think that, the system, frankly, and the experience is selling itself. Normally as an IT leader, you've got to spend a lot of time developing buy-in. softening the blow a little bit. Here comes another system. It really is not that experience, because essentially what we've done is we've just said to the secondary group, like, look, talk to group number one. Don't take it from me. These are your peers. These are the people that, they're writers, they're editors, they're designers. Talk to them and ask them about their experiences. And it's been so overwhelmingly positive that, the solution has really sold itself. So then, the exercise is quite easy from an operations and an IT perspective. Is you just walk in, you set your rollout dates, and away you go. So again, early days right now for that group. But again, like, that's usually the most difficult part of the exercise is the adoption part, is really selling this thing as like, this is not going to be another thing that IT drops on you to make your life miserable. It's something that we're bringing to make your life a lot better. And I think our experiences through those early days of the shutdown last year were almost like a white paper on how you should operate in these times, and WoodWing really was central to helping us do that.
And that's so great to hear. And so when you look back to having to prepare to vet a new system and look into new solutions, what kind of cultural philosophy do you think that you guys employed that allowed you to so swiftly make a major change like that and completely replacing your editorial software? And how, from a culture standpoint, were you able to get everybody to move forward in that direction and making those decisions? And then, as you said, having such a strong adoption as you guys moved.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's all about trust, right? And that's something that we've built up over a long period of time with our people. Where we over and over, usually a few times a year, have brought in a new system, a new platform, a new process. And we really try to take, I guess, a customer first, like treat our people, our editors and writers and designers, like customers of IT. And it really makes a huge difference. I think taking a service approach as well, that we are not there to impose our will. We are there to service the business. And I don't think that that's unique to publishing. Maybe it's handled a little bit differently depending on the media company and the IT groups. But part of our philosophy has always been like, we are there to solve the business's problems, anticipate them where we can. We are not there to dictate solutions. And I think over time, doesn't happen overnight, but over time you sort of build that trust up. So it really was us going back in there again, bringing everybody in early in the process. So I think that was also another very important approach that we took with WoodWing, was having the pre-sales group in there, having the post-sales group in there, professional services, to actually sit down with the writers and editors and the designers, our photo editors, and going through their process. Like, you guys are the ones who do this every day. How do you want the system to work? And frankly, to have that partnership there with us as well, really, I think, demonstrated the kind of the doubling down of trust that we have between our content creators and our operations and our technology group. And I think without having WoodWing there with that approach, I don't think it would have worked particularly well. So I think involvement of the people whose lives this is going to impact the most, and building that trust. If there's a philosophy in there somewhere, that's our philosophy.
And so as you look forward into 2021 and the years that come after that, what do you feel like will be a major driver in your making decisions for either channels for distribution or improved efficiencies through new technology? What do you see on the horizon for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really going to be about interoperability is really important. I think mitigating the number of middleware that you have, third-party solutions, and that's almost the most important thing from my perspective about looking at other channels of distribution, but also ways for us to distribute our content in different ways. So we talked about membership programs and things like that. experiential programs like events and things like that as well. We want to be able to tie those things into our workflow. So as we are creating content for print and for digital platforms, why shouldn't we be also doing that for social platforms, for experiential platforms? Like those are the things that are really the future of these businesses. We know how to do print, got to figure it out. It's been, 100 years and change. Digital, not quite as long, but I think we're pretty good on that front. Some of these other areas are going to emerge. Maybe we're going to be looking at, publishing more, personally, where people can kind of, pick and choose what they want on their feeds. We want to have control of that more centrally within our operation. And again, it needs to be part of our content workflow in order to do that. Systems we've used in the past, frankly, are just far too rigid to allow us to do that. Or if they're capable of doing it, it takes an awful lot of engineering. And what's been, I think a driving sort of mandate for us is we don't want to be going down the road where we have to be looking at doubling and tripling the size of our IT department in order to support, new content ventures. Instead, what we want to do is we want to continue to double down on investments that we've made in platforms and services and companies like WoodWing, of where we can address some of these kind of new challenges and nascent parts of our business.
So as you're looking to the horizon, as we just discussed, how are you making choices about where the technology is going, what technologies you need to be looking for so that you're moving in the direction the industry is, and being a leader for your industry?
Sure. Yeah, it's tricky in our industry for sure, because we're not big tech. So, there isn't a trend line that we can hop onto and, a whole pile of, online and in-person resources and, like going to CES or something like that. Typically we take two routes to that. One of them is our community. So the community of publishers and media companies in North America and I guess around the world. And the second is the vendors who support them. These could be, vendors and business partners that have been around for a long time, or they can be new entrants into the marketplace. I don't know that we've ever gone through any change in our business, including what we've just went through with WoodWing, without us approaching it as a partnership opportunity. And I don't mean that in the legal sense, but in the sense of, we have problems that we need to solve. There may or may not be an out-of-the-box solution for that. But again, we're not, typically, we're not really technology companies. So finding technological solutions isn't necessarily what publishers and media companies are good at. I think that, you have to talk about the challenges with other publishers, with your competitors. I know that sounds weird, but there's some of the best discussions that we have is within our own community. That community is getting a little bit bigger as well as we're getting into different areas of business. We talked about experiential. We're talking to people who do more experiential things and how are they handling it? Not surprisingly, people are very open and willing to have those discussions with us. Nobody wants to talk about any of their secret sauce, of course, but very cordial. But again, and also the vendor community, right? Business partners
Right.
that we have, people who approach us. And frankly, that was the case with WoodWing. I mean, we knew WoodWing existed a number of years ago. We knew that there was other publishers and media companies that have been using WoodWing. We were talking to them about it. We had some initial discussions, a handful of years ago. But it really wasn't until we started talking about, some challenges that we had. And I think the thing that really, kicked off the discussions between our two groups in a meaningful way was, when WoodWing started talking about like, here's some problems that you don't know you have yet. And I thought that was really interesting. And, that didn't mean that we didn't know our business or were blind to it, but, having a business partner or potential business partner who has a very wide range of customers across the world, not just publishers, but, people who create and have to manage content, workflow-centric, multi-platform, omni-channel, production and distribution. They're going to see a lot more than we are, sitting in Toronto, even as a mass publisher. And to us, that was, absolutely invaluable. And I'd say that, maybe that, that is the most important channel that we would tap on a regular basis in order to help us make technology decisions, maybe even make some business decisions about, some brands that may have, opportunities in other channels that maybe we haven't explored yet. So again, it's a bit two-pronged, but we can't underestimate the importance of our business relationships that we have with companies who have a much larger community than we do, even in the publishing space.
And so, as being an operational and technology leader within your organization, how were you able to make the case for a lot of these benefits that are not really tangible? It's hard to draw a line from, this solution to, this benefit or to this ROI. How were you able to make that case to your C-suite and your owners to say, this is the direction we need to go. This is the reason we need to make this investment in kind of making those long-term decisions?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say first of all, like almost anything in business, trust component is there. So that definitely made those first discussions a little bit easier. But I don't think that there's an executive in the world that walks into C-suite and has a discussion about new technology without being able to demonstrate, or without demonstrating that it's coming with efficiencies. It's either going to make the business function more efficiently. It's going to function more cost effectively. It may be speaking directly to, for example, in the case of St. Joseph, they knew they didn't have the systems with their original, media company to really take on this new acquisition. So they were looking for something, again, that would scale up, that would be flexible. I think you have to come forward with a plan to show efficiency. And it doesn't always come in the form of dollars. It comes in the form sometimes of, hours spent, minutes spent by your content creators. But I think with WoodWing, it was really a couple of things. I mean, we talked a lot about the opportunity to be able to explore channels that we hadn't explored before and explore them more cost effectively. I think the thing that was great for us, and again, this comes out of the experience that a company like WoodWing would have with several other of their business partners and their customers, is they were part of that discussion. They didn't walk into the C-suite with us, but that was really what we spent a lot of time on in those pre-sale days. Was okay, hey, Sean, you're going to have to go and have this conversation with the CEO and the CFO and whoever else. What are the things that you think are going to resonate, or here's a few things that we think would help, make the argument. So again, approaching that as a partnership, I think was key for us getting the approvals that we needed to move forward. So yes, some of it was out of necessity, for sure. We needed something. This seemed like the right tool, for sure. A certain amount of trust, demonstrating that this was going to bring efficiency to the business, and again, just some examples, some context that we were able to get from WoodWing to help us make that argument.
So I think we'll take it back just a little bit, back to the beginning where you were making your decisions. And I was kind of curious, when you are, looking at vendors and looking to make a decision, what are those questions that you go into a meeting with a vendor that will help you determine if they are going to be that good partner, if they are going to be someone who's going to help you find success and a path forward?
Yeah, I mean, a ton of questions. I mean, the RFP alone was 15 pages, but no, though, I mean, those are kind of more of the, formal RFP-ish things, but in the room, I mean, I'll be honest with you. If we have, a vendor, potential business partner who's doing the majority of the question asking, that says a lot. And I think that was our experience with WoodWing as well. That didn't mean that, the people in the room were taking up all the air by any stretch, but, we kind of presented our case. We presented what we believe to be our challenges in the business. We talked a little bit about our current solution and the gaps that were there, our frustrations with not being able to move forward, with not being as scalable and flexible as we would have liked to have been. I'd say the questions that we had more than anything was, what does the engagement look like? What does the pre-sale, sale, post-sale, post-implementation, what do those engagements look like? Those answers are probably the most important from my perspective. Those are the things that we really talk a lot about once the vendor's then out of the room. It's like, hey, how did you like their response? A lot of the questions that we had from WoodWing were about, like, how do you guys want to do this? Like, we're going to take you through what we believe is a best practices approach, but how do you want to do it? And not just asking, the leadership about that, but also asking the individual users. So there really was a lot of time spent on discovery. Again, those initial discussions were, what does your discovery process look like? How does that work? What are you looking to get out of that discovery process as a vendor? What do you think the value is to a company looking to work with WoodWing? What's the value of those discovery sessions? Ultimately, that is the stuff that won the business, was the trust that we were beginning to build with someone who we were not yet a partner with. And it started to feel in the very, very early days already like WoodWing was trying to work with us to solve our problems, not to just bring a solution forward that was, easy for them to implement, didn't have to really worry, not a lot of phone calls back and forth. Mm-hmm. It's just like, we're just going to install it, we're going to leave. There was, nothing, no one in the room got a sense of that at all. It was really all about, what do we want? So again, those were the important questions for us, and again, just listening to the types of questions that the vendor was asking of the business, really made a huge impact on us.
And it's glad, because those foundations that at the very beginning of that project, I think that's what's really helped, from our perspective, form a long-term relationship, something that both sides continue to grow with and work together with, and the work never stops. There's always going to be something new. So absolutely. I think that partnership works well.
It does, sure. And I'm glad you used that word, Lucas, because you probably heard me use it time and time, partnership, partner. Like, that's how we like to operate. It's how I like to operate. And I find that we can just get things done more effectively that way. And, you and yours have definitely been partners. I think there's even some friendships that have developed out of that, which happens when you're, long hours of implementation and things like that. But no, it's been really a fantastic relationship.
That's great. And I think you couldn't pick a better note to end the conversation on and the questions. So Sean, we really do appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and to give us your insights. And we do look forward to continuing to grow the relationship as we move forward.
Right on. Thanks, Lucas. My pleasure.